his comments were very positive and very pragmatic. So despite the power going out and not being able to go through the presentation, the meeting went very well. So my first note from a committee report is that I would like to propose that we would have a follow-up community forum this one. Please.
It would just brought something to my attention, and I know there's all sorts of different dates, but the community watch meeting is Wednesday.
The neighborhood on watch meeting is Wednesday at Truman at 7 o'clock.
I was going to say, if we're going to have another community meeting, don't you think we need to have a little more time of advertisement to be able to get a larger group to come? I think the shortness of time prohibits.
That's fair. I mean, I think we did a good job of getting the word out last time. The robocalls went out to all the schools, and I heard some positive news. We had quite a turnout. What I'm concerned about is just the overall timeline, and that's really one of the themes that I want to hit on here, is that if we look at the calendar, we're faced with next week is a spring break week. So really to give, I'm searching for words here, so to give those people who would need to enact these proposals adequate time, we're really right up against the wall, past the wall, however you want to say it. So this one,
we're really in a time crunch.
Yeah, well, exactly. I'm very sensitive to the time. So go on, please.
Well, I was going to say the difficulty is, and I get that we need to get the word out to the community and all of that, but the board hasn't made any decisions on anything, and
Agreed.
Some of the problem that I've been given this weekend when I got back from my trip was immediately being hit with the idea that we're closing Kennedy. I was bombarded this weekend with that. And my response is the board has not made a decision on anything yet because we had just gotten the answers to the questions from the first presentation. So I get the idea of getting it out to everybody, and I express this to you in our communication, of getting the word out to everybody, but are we causing a sense of fear in people for things that we as a board may not be supporting? Is my first question.
I think, and again, we really stress that these were proposals. What we really wanted to do is just inform the public. And again, one of the issues is when we look at some of the other districts, Farmington, for example, held forums for, I think, upwards of almost of a year, if I'm not mistaken. We're not in the position where we can afford, for lack of a better word, to do that. So what my goal with this is try to work parallel paths, allowing the board to do its deliberation while at the same time informing the public of the proposals. I mean, we were very emphatic on that these were proposals. And I think, again, Mr. Saylor and the scope did a great job explaining that in his review. So that was made very clear to them. It's just, I'm just really sensitive to how can we work in parallel paths to make sure that the board gets all the information needed to move and that the community gets information it needs to frankly dispel some of the rumors that are out there. And again, Mr. Saylor did a great job updating the presentation, and the fact that it was on the website the next day was nothing but helpful. And the only people that I ran into said, "What about this?" I said, I literally had my phone, that webpage on my phone, and showed people, you can go right here. I want to say a half dozen times.
How many people were at though?
About 50 people, maybe, something like that.
Between 50 and 75.
Yeah, I'm not really sure. Frankly, in the dark there.
Yeah.
And John, could, if we could tweak, I would kind of lean myself towards Thursday. At least you get 2 days notice to get people out. If you do it Wednesday, you just got tomorrow.
Well, the problem is that's the last day before the holidays, which led to the Wednesday discussion.
Well, if people want to come, they're going to come.
Yeah. So, I mean, we can talk a little bit more about that, but so I'll come back to that proposal in a moment. But so let me just go through a few other points. Then, so I think again the committee's done a tremendous amount of work to date. The presentation that was put out there added on a considerable more detail. So I would encourage everybody. I think pretty much everybody on the board's probably already looked at it. It took a lot of the work that was done during the committee. For example, if you go through it, you'll see some of the thought processes. You see that the actual scenarios that were developed. We look at this school, that school, what are some of the optimal, and there's a lot of the actual math behind the proposals that's in here. It's just a lot of detail and data that helps understand the proposals. It's no change at all to the proposals that were presented to the board previously, of course. It's just more the detail behind it. And frankly, it's more the detail that was actually done during deliberations, the actual development process for these. So that's really, you know, out there. So I encourage everybody to go through that. I think we as a board need to come back and look at this more. I know our next board meeting is April 11, so that, and thus the concern over the time frame. If we really, at that point now, we're down to about effectively not even really 2 months before the end of the year to try to make some improvements based off these proposals. So that's really my concern, is looking at those timelines, and I had a calendar out, was looking at it, so we really get tight. So we, you know, I think we just owe it to the committee and the community to try to deliberate with diligence. So if I could ask to just go through when we think we can come up with some decisions, maybe that's a better way to approach this thing. Oh, sorry, I thought I was being loud enough. So,
I'm in for whatever day anybody chooses. I want to be at it. Unfortunately, I couldn't be at the Thursday one, but the next one I will be there.
yeah, and if we look at board meetings in April, we've got April 11th, we have a committee meeting on the 18th, and then a board meeting on the 25th. I really think, you know, getting too far into April is just asking a lot of anybody to implement these changes. So that's kind of where I'm at. I think we really want to try to get, if there's any further questions, and do our deliberations. And at the same time, we need to make sure we're informing the public. That's really my goal, trying to just work parallel paths. So I'm open to any questions that anybody's got regarding this.
Mr. Riley, for our conversation, may I read a letter?
Sure.
I talked with Mr. Riley today about a number of things, but there's some issues with the committee and with the process that was followed. So I'm going to read this letter. And the committee put in a lot of time and effort and work, but we have process and laws that need to be followed. And my first question, I just addressed it to the board and Diane. I'm writing this letter in response to the Reconfiguration Task Force concept proposal. While I'm thankful for the time they took to study this concept, I believe the process followed was not ideal. I continue to have questions regarding the Reconfiguration Task Force Committee. Number one, who's in charge of this committee and how was it formed? So who's running this committee?
It was a committee that, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, we had discussed at, way back in the fall, November I believe it was, about should we look at any kind of, again, reconfiguration, and at that time, myself and Teresa, we met with the union presidents, we sat down and thought, how can we put together another group who will study some of these things and represent all stakeholder groups. And we met probably 3 or 4 times. We put together a community survey to get community input. After that, we got back together, we met and tried to get what stakeholder groups can we have represented. We have parent, city council person, community member, TFT, TAXA, TPA, and 26M, a group of 12. And I put together a binder with as much information as I could put in it, research, functional capacity, the community survey, contact information for each of them, and we kind of handed that off to them. And that's how it was established.
Okay, well, I think I'm going to just read this whole thing and then we can go back to address the questions. Is it a superintendent committee or ad hoc committee or board committee? I thought the board gave Mrs. Allen the charge to put together a committee to study the reconfiguration recommendations, which you did previously made, and come back to the Board of Education with the answers to the questions that arose last year when the proposal was initially made to close the 6th grade academy. The board at that time asked for more data and a complete, well-prepared plan to be brought back to the board for reconsideration. With any of these three configurations of the reconfiguration committee, both board policy and open meetings acts were violated by not posting the meetings, having an agenda and minutes, allowing for public comment, and reporting timely progress made back to the board.
That's incorrect, but keep going.
The use of the term trustee has legal implications, and I don't think this committee meets this administrative definition, but was set up only as an advisory committee. Policy 1180, board advisory committees, was not followed by having 3 board members on this committee, having the task force specifically defined by the board with timelines for reporting back to the board. A hearing was also held without board approval. Also, PA 451 of 1976 revised school code states that neither Department of Education nor the State Board of Education may supersede a local board's authority. The reconfiguration task force may want to look at this along with board policy. What did this reconfiguration committee study when they met? What data was presented to them? What best practices did they look at? What buildings did they tour? Where are the minutes from these committee meetings? How were these meetings posted? Did the committee have any other presentations besides the outsourcing company presentation? Were any other staff members or community members consulted during this process? If so, whom? Number 4, did this reconfiguration committee look at best practice on closing schools and into the PR associated with this recommendation? How can the board make this decision without hard data, especially involving finances? How will this plan ensure that the district will stay out of debt, students and teachers and staff will have what they need to perform their jobs, and that the buildings with the most need are closed? How can the board make this decision without hard data regarding how the curriculum changes will improve student learning and prepare them for their future jobs and citizenship? What is the added cost of adding this curriculum? Where is the data regarding how students learn in a big school environment, and what would class sizes look like? How can we combine schools and have lower class sizes? Were the safety issues regarding having one combined high school studied? Were the students, parents, and community members asked about what they would like to see the Taylor School District look like in 5 years by having focus groups and input at that level? Were any plans discussed to increase revenue to the district by adding Career Center courses, expanding PACE at the Career Center, for example, others? Regarding the study of changing school boundaries, how would this lower class sizes? How would this lower bus routes?